Owen had learned that the safest way to survive on Thessia was to become boring. Not suspiciously boring, just the right kind of forgettable. He published sensible papers, complained mildly about lab humidity, and drank the same lukewarm nutrient tea every morning, like a man with no secrets and very low standards. The research wing he occupied sat 3 levels beneath the palace gardens, humming softly with biofilters and shielded walls, a place where diseases were dissected politely and nothing dramatic was supposed to happen, which was why the sound of someone sobbing outside his quarters at 2 in the morning felt like a violation of several unspoken agreements. He stared at the door panel for a long second, hoping, briefly, that Thessian royal security had invented a new kind of emotional alarm. The sobbing continued, sharp and uneven, followed by a sniff that had no business echoing down a corridor lined with sterile alloy. Owen sighed, dragged a hand through his hair, and opened the door. Princess Kaeva stood there, eyes reddened, shoulders tense, her long ears drooping in a way that was profoundly undignified for someone whose face appeared on currency. She looked very much like a human woman at first glance. Same proportions, same familiar lines of exhaustion and fear. But the ears gave her away, long and tapered, trembling slightly as if they were trying to decide whether to retreat or strike. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. "This," Owen said finally, gesturing vaguely between them, "is not how official meetings are usually scheduled." She stepped past him without waiting for permission, her boots making soft, angry clicks against the floor. "I couldn't come during the day." "That makes 2 of us," he muttered, closing the door. "I avoid daytime conversations whenever possible." Kaeva turned on him so suddenly that he almost backed into his own desk. 10 years ago," she said, voice shaking despite the steel underneath it, "during the first plague, a human doctor synthesized a cure in less than a week." Owen felt something old and unpleasant stir behind his ribs. He kept his expression carefully neutral, the way one did when faced with a dangerous animal or a very persistent bureaucrat. "That's a popular rumor," he said. "Humans get blamed or credited for all kinds of things, usually both at once." She pulled a small data wafer from her sleeve and slammed it onto his table. "The official record says a Thessian medical council developed the cure. But this—" Her voice broke. She inhaled, steadying herself. "This contains private transmissions, lab notes, genetic markers, human techniques, your techniques." Owen glanced at the wafer. He didn't touch it. "Princess, you're upset. That makes people see patterns where there aren't any." "My mother is dying," Kaeva said. The words landed heavily, like gravity increasing without warning. "Again. And the old cure isn't working." Silence filled the room, broken only by the low hum of the ventilation system and Owen's increasingly unconvincing calm breathing. He leaned against the counter, buying himself a second, then another. "I'm sorry about the Queen," he said quietly. "Truly. But whatever you think you found, you're wrong about me." Her ears lifted sharply. "You ran simulations last year on adaptive plague variants that mutate along protein-folding shortcuts unique to human improvisational chemistry." Owen winced. "That paper was theoretical." "So was the cure," she snapped, "until it saved millions." She stared at him now, searching his face with the intensity of someone who had already lost patience with lies. He could feel the past pressing closer, memories of makeshift labs, of alarms and bodies, and the smell of antiseptic barely masking fear. "You left," she said more softly. "After you saved her. After you saved all of us." "Yes," Owen said, a dry edge creeping into his voice. "I have a long-standing policy of leaving right after miracles. Cuts down on follow-up questions." That wasn't funny. "It wasn't meant to be," he said. "It was deflection." She sank onto the edge of his chair, clearly exhausted, her ears drooping again. For a moment, she looked very young. "The new strain was designed," she said. "It learns. It adapts faster than our immune systems. Faster than our pride." Owen closed his eyes briefly. "Someone wanted to make sure the old cure couldn't be reused." "Yes." She looked up at him. "And I believe you're the only one who can adapt it." He laughed then, a short, surprised sound. "You Thessians really do worship optimism, or recklessness. Sometimes I can't tell the difference. I'm offering you protection, Kaeva said. Status, resources, anything you want. He opened his eyes. I want to stay invisible. Her gaze didn't waver. That's no longer an option. Owen glanced at the sealed door, the quiet corridor beyond it, the carefully constructed life that depended on nobody looking too closely. Somewhere above them, a queen lay dying. Somewhere farther away, people who remembered his name would very much like to own it again. He rubbed his face. You realize, he said slowly, that if I do this, everything comes back. Corporations, governments, very unpleasant meetings. Kaeva managed a weak, humorless smile. If you save my mother, she said, you'll survive the meetings. He snorted despite himself. That's the most royal thing you've said all night. They sat there in uneasy silence. A princess with drooping ears and a man who had once cured a plague and then run from the applause. Outside, Thesia slept, unaware that its future had just wandered into a cluttered research room at 2 a.m. and refused to leave. By morning, Owen's quarters smelled faintly of burnt nutrient bars and diplomatic regret. Princess Kaeva had refused to leave. She sat at his small work table, back straight, ears held deliberately neutral now, as if posture alone could restore a sense of control. Owen, meanwhile, stood at the sink, staring at a cup that was supposed to be tea but had long since become an abstract concept. You're still here, he said, mostly to confirm reality. Yes. That wasn't a suggestion, he added. I know. He turned, leaning against the counter. Princess, if anyone sees you coming out of my quarters, they won't. You don't know that. She tilted her head. I disabled the corridor sensors. Owen blinked. You did what? She looked almost apologetic. It was either that or explain to palace security why I was crying outside your door. He considered this. All right, he said slowly. You made the correct choice. I hate paperwork. She allowed herself a very small smile, which vanished as soon as she pulled another data projection into the air. The hologram bloomed between them. Tangled protein chains, branching mutation paths, red warning indicators pulsing like slow heartbeats. This is the new strain, she said. It's rewriting itself. Owen stepped closer despite himself. No, he murmured. It's not rewriting. It's shortcutting. Her eyes flicked to him. That's what our lead scientist said. Owen snorted. Then your lead scientists are wrong, or lying to sound less wrong. He reached out, adjusting the projection, fingers moving on instinct. See this fold? That's not adaptation. That's preloaded. Someone anticipated immune responses and baked the countermeasures in. Kaeva's ears stiffened. So it was designed. Congratulations, Owen said. You have been selected for the galactic edition of Who Wants to Ruin a Civilization? She didn't laugh. He sighed. Sorry, bad habit. I cope with impending disaster through sarcasm. I've noticed. They stood there, close enough that Owen became acutely aware of how little personal space existed in Thessian culture. He took a step back, nearly tripping over a stool. So, he said, waving at the floating nightmare, why me? You already know why. I want to hear you say it, he replied. Out loud, with witnesses, preferably recorded so I can deny it later. Kaeva folded her hands. Because the original cure used non-linear synthesis methods. You didn't follow Thessian protocol, you improvised. That's just another word for panic, Owen said. And it worked, she countered. Our scientists still don't fully understand why. Because they insist on elegance, he said. Diseases don't care about elegance. They care about speed. She studied him for a moment. You sound angry. I am, Owen admitted. At myself, at everyone. Mostly at biology. He moved to the opposite console, pulling up old files he hadn't meant to open ever again. The lab lights dimmed as systems spun up, recognizing patterns they hadn't seen in a decade. You know, he said, after the cure, 3 pharmaceutical groups offered me contracts, all very generous. All included clauses about exclusive application. Kaeva frowned. Exclusive? As in, only we decide who gets saved. Her ears flattened. That is unacceptable. Welcome to human capitalism, Owen said cheerfully. We put a price tag on miracles. And your government? Owen laughed, sharp and humorless. They were worse. They didn't want to sell it. They wanted to aim it. Silence settled again, heavier this time. So I ran, he continued. Changed names, changed planets, learned how to be boring. You're terrible at it, Kaeva said. High praise, he replied. A chime sounded, soft, discreet. Owen froze. What was that? He asked. Kaeva glanced at her wrist console. A priority medical update. He swallowed. Is it? She's deteriorating, Kaeva said quietly. The fever spikes are closer together. Owen exhaled slowly. Then we don't have time for politics. No, she agreed, which is why I need your answer. He looked around the lab. The clutter, the patched equipment, the carefully constructed anonymity. Then at the projection of a disease designed by someone who understood exactly how cruel intelligence could be. If I do that, he said, I won't hide the method. Her eyes widened slightly. I'll publish it, he continued. Open access, everywhere. No patents, no ownership. That will anger powerful people, she said. It already has, Owen replied. They just don't know it yet. Kaeva stood, stepping closer, her voice low. If you succeed, Thesia will protect you. He raised an eyebrow. Against corporations? Yes. Governments? Yes. Angry committees? She hesitated. We can negotiate. He chuckled. I knew there was a limit. He turned back to the console, fingers flying now, pulling apart the old cure structure, overlaying it with the new strain's logic. For the first time in 10 years, he stopped pretending the past was dead. All right, he said. I'll try. Kaeva's breath caught. But, he added, you need to understand something. She nodded. I'm not a hero, Owen said. I'm a man who hates bullies, microbes included. And if someone designed this plague to make a point, he looked at the pulsing red indicators, eyes hard. I'm going to ruin their thesis. For the first time since she'd arrived, Kaeva smiled properly, ears lifting just a fraction. I believe, she said, that is the most comforting thing you could have said. Somewhere deep within the palace, alarms remained silent, the queen's condition worsening by invisible degrees. And beneath it all, in a borrowed lab with patched equipment and a human who had once run from saving the world, the race began again. The first thing Owen did was break a palace rule. Technically, the palace broke it for him, but he was the one who asked. The lab they assigned him was pristine, ceremonial, and entirely useless. Every surface gleamed. Every instrument came with a warning label, a protocol tablet, and a Thessian technician whose job appeared to be watching Owen with mild terror. Owen walked in, took one look around and said, Absolutely not. The lead technician blinked. This laboratory is calibrated to royal biomedical standards. Yes, Owen said, nodding. That's the problem. Princess Kaeva stood beside him, arms crossed, ears angled forward in interest. Explain. He gestured at the rows of identical equipment. This is a museum. I need a junkyard. Silence followed. A junkyard, the technician repeated carefully. Yes, misaligned centrifuges, inconsistent power flow, instruments with personality flaws. If nothing here has ever failed catastrophically, I don't trust it. Kaeva's mouth twitched. You want broken tools. I want honest ones. Against all logic and several complaints, the palace relocated him to a decommissioned research wing beneath the eastern spires. The walls were older, the power grid unreliable, and the diagnostic array made a noise like it was quietly resentful. Owen smiled for the first time since arriving. This, he said, setting his bag down, is where miracles feel comfortable. He worked fast, not with panic, but with momentum. Data streamed across the air in layered holograms as he reconstructed the original cure from memory and fragments. His fingers moved as if 10 years had never passed. Kaeva watched from a respectful distance, though her definition of respectful still involved standing close enough to read his expressions. You remember all of it, she said. I remember the mistake, Owen replied. Those are the important parts. He isolated a protein chain and let it rotate slowly. The old cure forced the plague into metabolic exhaustion. This new variant doesn't get tired. It hands the work off. To what? She asked. He enlarged a segment, highlighting it in angry red. A secondary vector, Dormant until triggered. It's like fighting someone who brings a friend to every punch. That sounds unfair, Kaeva said. Disease is very unsporting. A chime sounded again. Owen didn't flinch this time. Update, Kaeva said quietly. The fever broke for 6 minutes, then returned stronger. Owen exhaled. All right, we're behind. He started muttering to himself, a stream of half-formed thoughts and very formed insults aimed at microorganisms. Kaeva caught phrases like adaptive cascade, predictive folding, and I swear if this thing evolves thumbs. She interrupted gently. You said you would tell me about the first time. Owen paused. The plague? You, she corrected. Running. He leaned back against the table, rubbing his eyes. I didn't run at first. He told her then, hands still moving as he spoke. About the temporary lab on the edge of a quarantine city. About sleeping in 20-minute stretches. About synthesizing compounds with equipment that technically violated 4 safety laws and 1 moral guideline. I distributed the cure freely, he said. Broadcast the method, thought that would protect it. And then, Kaeva said, and then people with nicer shoes showed up. She frowned. Shoes? Perfectly clean. No dust. Always a bad sign. He smiled faintly. They talked about efficiency, distribution control, strategic applications. I realized if I stayed, the cure would stop being medicine. So you erased yourself, she said. I tried. Turns out history hates being edited. A new projection appeared without his input. Owen stiffened. Who authorized that? He snapped. Kaeva checked her console. That's not ours. The data stream was subtle, embedded within public medical traffic, disguised as a routine query. Owen recognized the signature instantly. Oh no, he muttered. What? Kaeva demanded. Someone's watching, he said, and they're being polite about it, which is worse. Her ears flared. Corporate? Or governmental? Possibly both. They tend to travel in packs. He shut down several feeds, rerouting data through Thessian quantum relays. Congratulations, he said. You officially have company. Can you block them? Yes, Owen said. For now. Long term? Not without making noise. She met his gaze. Then make noise. He laughed softly. Careful. Humans hear that as encouragement. Hours blurred together. The lab grew warmer, messier. Failed syntheses piled up. The adaptive model refused to collapse. At one point, Owen slumped onto a stool. I hate this part. Kaeva crouched beside him, surprising him. Which part? The part where I wonder if I was wrong to come back. She studied his face. You didn't come back for recognition. No, he said. I came back because I can't stand losing to something that doesn't even know it's cruel. A new alert flashed. Owen straightened instantly. What is it? Kaeva asked. He stared at the data, then grinned despite himself. It blinked. The pathogen? Yes, it hesitated. She smiled, hopeful. Is that good? It means, Owen said, already moving, that whoever designed this assumed I wouldn't. The palace above them remained serene, ceremonial, unaware that beneath its foundations, a tired human and a grieving princess were laughing quietly over the first mistake a plague had made, and for the first time since the fever returned, hope learned how to breathe again. By the 4th day, the lab had stopped, pretending it was part of the palace. Cables ran openly across the floor like tripping hazards with ambition. 3 diagnostic units were arguing with each other in soft electronic clicks. One wall panel had been removed entirely and replaced with a temporary cooling rig Owen had built out of a food synthesizer, and what he insisted was aggressive optimism. Princess Kaeva stood at the doorway, watching Owen tighten a connector with his teeth. That appliance was designed to prepare ceremonial meal, she said. It's preparing medicine, Owen replied around the tool. Very advanced cuisine. She stepped inside, ears flicking as the temperature fluctuated. You haven't slept. I closed my eyes twice, he said, once voluntarily. She moved closer, placing a sealed container on the table. Eat. He eyed it suspiciously. What is it? Protein paste. That's not an answer. It tastes like determination, she said. He grimaced but took it anyway, swallowing a mouthful. You lied. It tastes like regret. She smiled faintly. The smile faded quickly as a new projection lit the air. Her mother's vitals. faintly improved, then faltering again. The hesitation didn't last, Kaeva said. No, Owen agreed. It learned. He pulled the pathogen model forward, rotating it slowly. The adaptive vector had reorganized overnight, subtle but unmistakable. They anticipated brute force solutions, he said. They didn't anticipate pettiness. Kaeva blinked. Pettiness? I'm going to make it waste energy, he explained. Chase fake problems. Burn itself out trying to be clever. That sounds childish, he smiled. You'd be amazed what wins wars. A voice echoed from the far end of the lab. Dr. Owen. Owen froze. The speaker stepped into the light, tall, immaculate, wearing a neutral diplomatic uniform that somehow managed to look expensive without admitting it. Ah, Owen said slowly. The shoes. The man inclined his head. You recognize me. I recognize the type, Owen replied. Let me guess. Medical consultant. Strategic health liaison, the man corrected. Kaeva's posture shifted instantly, regal and cold. This facility is under royal authority. Of course, the man said smoothly, which is why we're concerned. You're developing a cure without oversight. Owen laughed. Oversight is how this started. The liaison smiled. Transparency benefits everyone. Only if everyone's honest, Owen said. You're not. The man's gaze flicked briefly to the chaotic lab. Your methods are unconventional. They work. They can be monetized. Kaeva stepped forward. This conversation is over. The liaison hesitated, then nodded. For now, but time is limited. After he left, the lab felt smaller. They'll escalate, Kaeva said. Yes, Owen replied. They always do. He returned to the console, fingers flying, which means we accelerate. The next hours were brutal. Simulations failed. Power surged. One diagnostic unit finally gave up and sparked ominously. Owen slapped it. Don't you dare die on me. It stabilized, offended but functional. At some point, Kaeva found herself laughing, quietly, unexpectedly, as Owen argued with the machine about thermodynamics like it was a stubborn colleague. You humans, she said, anthropomorphize everything. We find it helps morale, he replied, including the machines. Then it happened. The pathogen model collapsed inward, not completely, but enough. Owen stared. That's new. Kaeva leaned in. Is it failing? It's confused, he said. It's wasting energy correcting for threats that don't exist. Hope flickered again, fragile but real. A medical alert chimed. Kaeva checked it, breath catching. Her fever is stabilizing. Owen closed his eyes briefly. Good. That buys us time. How much? Hours, maybe a day. She nodded. Then we keep pushing. They work side by side now, less cautious, more synchronized. The lab filled with layered projections, human equations intersecting with Thessian biological theory. At one point, Owen paused, looking at her. You know, if we survive this, history's going to be very annoying about us. She raised an eyebrow. In what way? Statues, speeches, bad interpretations? She smiled. We can always hide. He snorted. You're terrible at that. Another alert. This one different. Owen stiffened. They've breached the outer data shell. Kaeva's ears flared. Can they stop you? Not if I finish first. He initiated the final synthesis stage, heart pounding. The lab lights dimmed as power rerouted. This will expose everything, she said quietly. Yes. And you're still doing it. He glanced at her. Some things shouldn't be owned. The system chimed. Success. The adapted cure stabilized, elegant in its brutal simplicity. Kaeva's breath shook. It worked. Owen slumped back, exhausted, smiling despite himself. I told you, pettiness. Above them, the palace stirred. Forces moved, decisions were made. But beneath it all, in a broken lab held together by stubbornness and borrowed courage, a plague had finally met something worse than intelligence. It had met a human who refused to lose. The first thing that went wrong was the silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that felt staged, like a room holding its breath because someone had told it to. Owen noticed it when the lab's background hum dropped half a register. The diagnostic unit still glowed. The cooling rig still rattled. But the subtle noise of the palace grid, the distant thrum of life above them, had faded. He looked up. They've isolated us. Kaeva didn't ask who. Her ears were already angled back, the Thessian equivalent of someone reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. How long, she asked. Hard to say, Owen replied. Could be minutes. Could be a polite eternity. She folded her arms. They won't storm in. Not yet. No, Owen agreed. They'll try to negotiate. People like this always do. They think the word compromise is a spell. As if summoned by the thought, the lab lights shifted tone. Warmer, more inviting. A projection bloomed in the center of the room, resolving into a familiar, well-groomed face. The liaison smiled. Dr. Owen, Princess Kaeva, he said. I'm glad we can speak without distractions. Owen squinted at the projection. You dim the lights. That's manipulative. Ambience matters, the liaison replied. It really doesn't, Owen said. Just say what you want. The man inclined his head. We're aware you've achieved a breakthrough. Kaeva's voice was cool. You have no authority here. On the contrary, the liaison said, we represent a coalition, several in fact. Owen sighed. Of course you do. We're prepared to offer protection, the liaison continued. Resources, a controlled rollout of the cure. Controlled, Owen echoed. There it is. Unregulated distribution would be chaotic, the liaison said gently. Dangerous. Owen leaned forward. You engineered a plague to prove a point, didn't you? The smile didn't falter. Allegations like that are unhelpful. That's a yes, Owen said. You wanted to see if miracles could be repeated or owned. Kaeva's ears flared sharply. You killed people. Losses occur in all large-scale transitions, the liaison said. Progress requires... The projection cut off. Owen hadn't even realized he'd moved. He stood there, hands still raised, heart pounding. I hate that speech. The lab felt real again. Loud, messy, alive. Kaeva stared at him. You just severed diplomatic contact. Yes, he said. I'm sure they'll send a strongly worded apology. Or soldiers. She almost laughed. Almost. A medical alert chimed. Urgent. They both froze as Kaeva checked it. She's responding, she said, voice tight. The fever's dropping steadily. Owen exhaled. Good. Then we're winning. And they know it. Which means, Owen said, already moving, we publish. Now. Kaeva hesitated. If you do that, there's no going back. He glanced at her. You still offering protection? Yes. Then let's make it expensive to come after me. He opened the broadcast protocols, routing through Thessian quantum relays, bypassing every corporate filter he knew. Data packets surged outward. Methodologies, synthesis steps, failure notes, everything. Kaeva watched, awe and fear mixing. You're including your mistakes. Especially my mistakes, Owen said. That's how you stop people from pretending they invented it. Alarms began to sound, distant, muted, then closer. They're mobilizing, Kaeva said. Owen grinned tiredly. Told you. A new presence entered the lab, not physically, but perceptibly. Thessian royal security systems came online, ancient and powerful, their logic unmistakably territorial. Kaeva straightened, voice firm. Royal decree, she said aloud. This research is under sovereign protection. The alarms changed pitch. Owen blinked. That worked. She shot him a look. Never underestimate bureaucracy with fangs. Minutes stretched. The broadcast completed. Owen leaned back, exhausted. Well, that's done. Kaeva studied him. Are you afraid? He considered. Yes, but I've been afraid for 10 years. This feels cleaner. Another alert chimed. She's awake, Kaeva whispered. My mother is awake. Owen closed his eyes, letting the relief wash through him. Good, he said softly. She can yell at me later. Kaeva laughed then, really laughed, for the first time since he'd met her. It broke the tension like light through glass. Above them, the palace buzzed with reaction, outrage, awe, recalculations. Below it, a tired human and a princess with long ears sat amid broken equipment and cooling cables, sharing a moment of quiet victory. The war wasn't over, not even close. But for now, a queen lived. And the truth was free. The palace did not celebrate quietly. Corridors once reserved for ceremonial silence filled with hurried footsteps, overlapping voices, and the distinct sound of several political careers trying very hard not to end. Medical staff moved with purpose, security units repositioned, and somewhere high above the research wing, a queen was sitting upright for the first time in days, very much alive and very much displeased with how close she had come to dying without permission. Owen learned this because a Thessian nurse leaned into the lab, glanced at the chaos, and said, "Her Majesty would like to meet you." He looked up from a console that was still running diagnostics on the cure. Like, socially? The nurse's ears twitched. Immediately, Owen glanced at Kaeva. Is she the type who executes people before or after thanking them? Kaeva smiled tiredly. She usually waits until after lunch. That's reassuring. They were escorted through layers of security that now treated Owen less like an anonymous researcher and more like an unstable artifact that had somehow become historically important. The attention made his skin itch. As they walked, Kaeva spoke quietly. The broadcast is spreading faster than expected. Good, Owen said. Speed is the only advantage transparency has. And the corporations? He shrugged. They're furious, which means they're predictable. They entered the Royal Medical Chamber, a space that blended advanced technology with ancient Thessian design. The queen lay against a raised support, color slowly returning to her face, long ears adorned with ceremonial bands that marked survival and authority. Her eyes fixed on Owen immediately. So, she said, voice still weak but sharp, you're the ghost. Owen cleared his throat. I prefer recurring inconvenience. Kaeva gasped softly. Owen, the queen laughed, a dry sound that ended in a cough. I like him. Owen relaxed by approximately 1%. You saved my people, the queen said. Twice. I fixed a problem, Owen replied. People did the surviving. She studied him. You ran. Yes. Good, she said. Anyone who stays after that much gratitude is either lying or planning something. Kaeva stared. Mother. The queen smiled at her daughter. You chose well. Afterward, Owen expected relief. Instead, he felt watched. Back in the lab, the atmosphere shifted again. Not with threats this time, but with offers. Messages poured in from research institutions, planetary councils, independent medical networks. Some were earnest, others were less so. Owen deleted 3 before breakfast. One message slipped through anyway, a live transmission request routed through a Thessian diplomatic channel. He sighed. They're persistent. Kaeva folded her arms. Shall I block it? No, Owen said. Let's see what desperation sounds like. The projection resolved into a different face this time. Older, sharper, eyes like calculations. Dr. Owen, the woman said, you've caused significant disruption. Thank you, he replied. I was worried it wouldn't be noticeable. She didn't smile. Your actions destabilized several pharmaceutical markets. I cure diseases, Owen said. If markets can't survive that, they deserve therapy. Kaeva coughed to hide a laugh. We're prepared to offer amnesty, the woman continued. Research funding, autonomy. Owen leaned closer. You're offering me the cage with nicer bars. Her expression cooled. Refusal would be unwise, he shrugged. So was designing a plague to test ownership models. The transmission cut. Owen stared at the empty air. You know, he said, I'm starting to think they don't like me. Kaeva smiled. You're ruining centuries of tradition. They returned to work, not on the cure now, but on distribution, ensuring the adapted method reached every affected region before interference could slow it. Thessian engineers collaborated with human medics across secure quantum links, the data too widespread now to be contained. At one point, a technician hesitated. Dr. Owen, are you certain releasing this openly is wise? Owen looked at the sprawling network map, glowing with nodes of shared knowledge. No, he said, but it's fair. Hours later, exhaustion set in. Owen slumped into a chair, rubbing his eyes. Kaeva handed him a cup. Tea. He sniffed it. Is this the regret one again? No, she said. This one tastes like cautious optimism. He drank. Still regret, but quieter. A final alert chimed. All regions confirmed, Kaeva said softly. The spread is contained. Owen leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Then we're done. She studied him. You don't sound relieved. I am, he said. I'm also unemployed, wanted by several powerful groups, and historically inconvenient. She smiled. You could stay. He raised an eyebrow. As what? As yourself, she said. Thessia could use more of that. He considered it. Outside, the palace lights shifted as the crisis finally began to ease. Somewhere above them, a queen lived. Somewhere far away, people were angry. Somewhere in between, a tired human had stopped running. For now, Owen said, I think I'll stay where the microscopes argue back. Kaeva laughed softly. The universe, it seemed, could survive another day without owning a miracle. The quiet that followed felt earned. Not the tense silence of waiting, not the staged calm of negotiations, but the kind that settles after something dangerous has passed and decided not to come back. The palace corridors returned to their ceremonial hush, though now it carried a different weight. Less reverence, more relief. Life resumed in cautious increments. Owen noticed the change when no one flinched as he walked past. He still hated being recognized. The glances lingered too long, the smiles came too quickly, and more than one junior researcher tried to follow him out of a room as if proximity alone might be educational. He dealt with it by retreating to the one place that had never asked him to be anything except precise. The lab. It was cleaner now. Not pristine. Owen refused to allow that. But functional. The food synthesizer had been returned to its original purpose after a brief, dramatic disagreement, and the diagnostic unit that once sparked ominously had been replaced with one that hummed in a more cooperative tone. Kaeva found him there, sitting on the edge of a work table, reading a message with a familiar scowl. Bad news, she asked. Define bad, he said. This one wants me to headline a symposium. She grimaced. That is terrible. They used the phrase, visionary architect. Oh no. I've been downgraded from ghost to metaphor. She laughed softly and leaned against the table beside him. Her ears were relaxed now, no longer weighted by constant tension. She wore no crown, no ceremonial markings, just simple attire suitable for someone who had slept properly for the first time in weeks. My mother wants to speak with you again, she said. Owen groaned. Did I offend her? No, Kaeva replied. She wants to thank you. I preferred the part where she threatened my execution schedule. She also wants to make something official. He looked at her. I don't do official. She knows, Kaeva said. That's why she wants you there. The audience chamber was smaller than Owen expected. No crowds, no pageantry. Just the queen, upright and fully herself again, and a handful of witnesses whose job was to remember accurately. You've given us more than survival, the queen said. You've given us autonomy. Owen shifted uncomfortably. I just didn't like the alternative. Intent doesn't diminish impact, she replied, but I will respect your wishes. She gestured and a data projection appeared, an announcement of an interstellar medical accord. Open research, shared discoveries, no ownership of cures. We will not credit you alone, the queen said. History will know this was a choice, not a miracle. Owen felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. And you, she added, turning to Kaeva, have learned that truth can be more powerful than legacy. Kaeva inclined her head. I learned from him. The queen smiled. Then you both did well. Later, as the palace lights dimmed into evening hues, Owen found himself walking the garden terraces. The air was warm, fragrant with unfamiliar flora, and for once his mind wasn't racing 3 steps ahead. You're not leaving, Kaeva said, joining him. He considered it. I thought about it. And I realized I'm not running anymore, he said. I'm just choosing. She nodded. What will you choose? Work, he said. Quiet arguments with machines. Occasional disasters. Maybe teaching, if I can scare people into asking good questions. She smiled. Thessia would like that. He glanced at her. And you. She met his gaze steadily. I would like you to stay. He exhaled, a slow, thoughtful breath. All right. The weeks that followed settled into something resembling normalcy. The cure held. The plague receded into data sets and cautionary lectures. Corporations adapted or retreated, finding new ways to make money that did not involve extinction events. Owen published, argued, revised, and occasionally slept. He learned to stop bracing for pursuit, to let the past remain what it was, a chapter, not a shadow. One evening, as he shut down the lab for the night, Kaeva asked him, "Do you regret revealing yourself?" He thought about it. "No," he said. "Turns out invisibility was heavier than I remembered." She smiled, ears lifting slightly. "Then you've changed." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I just stopped pretending." Above them, Thessia turned peacefully, unaware that it had been altered not by conquest or decree, but by a stubborn refusal to let life be owned. Owen looked at the stars and felt for the first time in a very long while exactly where he was supposed to be,